Of England, we're a company called Exesios. We deal with branding, digital and design situations for companies and municipalities. We've been established for 15 years, so we have a long, very long list of customers and clients, and if they weren't happy we wouldn't be here, so we've got a lot of experience on what we do. And Eleni, I look after the digital and branding side, and Eleni looks after the marketing and all the studio design and control. So this is Eleni, I'm Paul, so back to you.
Okay, thank you. Have I got this? Yes.
Yes.
Where do you want me to stand? Am I in the way? Okay, today I'm going to do some very short little presentations, because what I want this to be is more sort of an interactive thing. So to start off with, I'll do a very short thing on marketing and design and the importance of that, and then if you have any questions and we discuss this. Then there's going to be a tiny thing on graphical profile, because I know that was an important thing for you. Then we're doing a short a health check of the Tranimo new website, and to finish it off we'll have a little workshop but I like people to work in sort of a couple of sort of different groups to sort of with some sort of questions and things to talk about. So I want it to be, if you have any questions, please ask, because I just don't want to stand here talking. I'm very good at talking, but not good at public speaking, and I hate doing this. But if we'll sort of start with just a little sort of profile, just a little sort of summary on what we think is important to you, maybe for marketing and design. So if Paul does the slides for me. Okay, that's right. Okay, marketing is a process that continually builds on itself. The more you understand your customer, the more likely you are to succeed in what you're trying to do. And this is how we see this, and this is really the basic sort of substance of marketing. You really need to understand your target group or your client. And if I could have, yeah, so you get to know your customer, what motivates people, what is it that sort of gets them out of bed and want to do things, what do they hate, what do they love, and how does your service product policy make their life better, These are really important points, and if you get those right, then things can work. Then you focus on understanding the customer on a deeper level, and this is something that's come sort of recently, this deeper level of understanding, once you understand them, you'll be able to offer the solutions that are important to them, and you'll be able to engage. I think everyone knows this face, I hope. Okay. For Steve Jobs, it wasn't just products, so can I have the next one? He brought design and technology to levels of success never seen before. Customers don't just want their technology to function, they want it to be cool too. And in his words, Job told us, well, design isn't everything, it's still darn important. Design is really important. And then you have the emotional value. Great brands have a strong visual identity, but they also have these engaging personalities and opinions. Creating emotional value is fundamental for winning over your audience. If you don't have this emotional value these days, people will just sort of switch off and find something else that does sort of create that for them.
Yeah, things are going to make them feel good,
yes.
Look good, and so they just engage with what you're trying to tell them. If you have a blank piece of paper with just a couple of words, sometimes that works, but if it's not the right sort of message, it won't. So, yeah.
And then we have, and the next one. You have, yes, and this is really important for you. What do you stand for? Have a think about this, because again, this is important. I think we talked about it the other day. What is it? Who are you? What do you care about? And one way to approach this, I think, is this a brand manifesto. I believe you have one in the municipality. Do you have one? A declaration of your beliefs, your opinions, and motives and intentions. And as we talked about this before, didn't we, the other day, it's all about honesty. It's creating this honesty, who you really are, as a municipality, as a company, as a corporation, and sort of really sending out a clear message of what you do. You know, these days with the social media and everything else, you can't pretend you're something you're not. You can't pretend you're bigger than you are. You can't pretend you're something else than you are, because it's not going to be long before, you know, it's all over and it's out there and people know that's not true, and then people lose any faith they have in you and any trust they have in you or your product or your services. So, isn't it? This is really, really an important point. You know, be truthful to yourselves, understand yourself, and then you'll be able to understand your target group. And then you have, because you're a municipality, you've got almost like a much more difficult job to do, because you have so many different faces. You know, it's not easy to please everyone, because you have, I mean, okay, these are the three sort of main ones. You have the inhabitant, you know, you've got the external workforce, people perhaps that come in and work here and go out, and then you have the tourist. So, you know, those three, just those three alone are difficult to sort of cater for. So you need to really, you have a, you know, sort of a big job to understand them, and then maybe sort of move on with them. I think I've covered that. And then a website. Yeah, this is not alone, okay? You know, having a website is, you know, is not everything. Everything else that comes with it. You know, this family of collateral material, this family of, you know, sort of understanding, and sort of needs to be part of this. You know, your message has to follow the style, the brand message, consistency. I think we talk about consistency all the time, and consistency is the key, you know, to create a strong brand. You know, you might have, you know, a strong logo or a strong website, but then something goes out and another leaflet goes out from here, and it's got a completely different visual identity, and it's not consistent with everything you have, and nobody recognizes it. So to create a strong brand and identity, you need to have this consistency, because then people would sort of, oh, yeah, that's Tranimo, oh, you know, just sort of even subconsciously. And again, and the other thing is, which a lot of municipalities and a lot of companies worry about, is it's too expensive to have proper branding. It's too expensive to do, you know, sort of all these things. But in fact, it's expensive to have bad design and bad marketing. You know, it'll cost you more if you do it badly than it does if you do it well. So and that is really the main point, you know, consistency. And like I said, it's a short one, and now if anyone has any questions, then we're happy to answer them. Hope it made some sense. Yeah, can you show that now? Do you want to do that first?
The whole video.
I don't know, it's very noisy.
There is a video called The Naked Brand, which explains everything.
Would you like to have a look at that?
We're trying to, it's an hour long, but I've got it cut up into various sections. So I thought if we could watch a section, we could have some coffee, we could watch another section.
Can't we just have a little bit of a section?
Coffee.
I mean, the other thing I've got is the graphical profile that I wanted to do.
We'll do it.
The graphical profile is only a few slides. In fact, it's only 4 slides, and I think that was something that Veronica and Joanna were interested in. But like I said, it's only a tiny comment, because it will follow on when we do the website.
Because the other day the video didn't work in the other place, so I wasn't sure whether we'd be able to show it, but you know, we can show the video, it's good.
Yeah. Okay. This is, yeah, why is it important to communicate with a clear and distinct message, with a, you know, graphic profile? imagery, you know, it's very important because it conveys a lot of information at a glance. You know, you don't need to read the whole page to get a feeling or an understanding. If you want, you know, if you use good imagery, you know, sort of specific imagery to suit, you know, it attracts attention. People have busy lives. They want easily accessible information, you know, sort of, and it's just straightforward, and that's it really. But you can use too much imagery. You know, everything in moderation, you know, whatever it is, it has to be moderation. It's like, for example, if I had a beautiful vase, and I had a table, and I put one vase, it would stand out, and it would be, oh wow, this is wonderful. If I went and put 100 vases, and just put it on the table, then you don't see anything. It's, you know, when it comes to imagery, you have to look at it and you have to use it in moderation. Otherwise, the message is gone again, because then it will become this complicated thing that you were trying to avoid by using imagery. Too much imagery doesn't work either. So that's the simple message really again. So that's it. That's the little short one. So, okay. Everyone can go home now. We know that you've been working very hard on your website, and we feel that this is just a little bit of critique or some sort of things to look for.
It's the start of the journey.
Yeah. So the question is, if you go on, I have to say this is based on the the Google Translate English version that we could understand. So there would be a lot of criticism which probably are not fair on your Swedish version.
So we're looking at more like as a tourist?
Yeah, so if I was a tourist,
okay,
and I was looking at it, then this is what I see and this is what I'm criticizing now. First of all, what we think is important, the thing that we sometimes are not sure is what is this site for? You know, is it services and news for the local people? Is it tourist information portal, or is it for both? So that needs to be a little bit more clearer for us. You know, when we look at the website at the moment, like I said, the English version, we kind of have this uncertainty. And then the real issue is the language. You need to decide whether you want a multilingual site, and if so, what the main additional languages are, and that you have to invest in. And we know that, you know, I don't know, Swedish, English, German, whatever it is. Because at the moment, the Google Translate, if we go to the next one. See, if it's just in Swedish, we recommend not to have the Google Translate, okay? As part of your homepage, as it will appear that it's been approved by you, and the point that we were discussing yesterday, by having the Google Translate as such a major thing on your homepage, it takes away from the website itself, and it means that whatever it says in the Google Translate English is correct, when in fact there's a lot of broken sort of headings and all kinds of information that we can't see. So if we go to the next one, yeah. Okay, so for example, if you see here, the subheadings are all broken up, so we don't really know what they mean. Well, actually, that's the new, actually I've put that in because it says it's the new, no, can I go back on that one? It's okay. It says new arrival. See, that, I don't know what that is about. This new arrival is not necessary because you're talking about the Google Translate as a major thing. You know, that's how it works out for us. So it says new arrival. I don't know what it means. And then you say the postcard image has been distributed to new arrivals who come to Tranemo. This aims to facilitate navigation to change the language. And does that mean you've printed a postcard that you give out to people? Or, see, this is really very sort of confusing for us. The point is, we think really that the Google Translate needs to go. Anyone who goes, any foreigner that goes onto your website will have automatic Google Translate anyway. So if I'm doing it, then I know that it's not going to be perfect. But if you're making such a big point of it as is part of your website, that means it's been checked and it's correct. and then I'm kind of utterly confused. Also, when you go through it, there's sections that are not translated, you know, sort of there's like services, they're all in Swedish, and then it kind of just throws the whole website upside down, and it's confusing it. And then we think, this is your header image. Can you see that kind of takes everything here, you know, the language bit, that needs to go. We think the header image needs to be more engaging, because you have it, at the moment you have it on every page. You have options. You could either stay with it on every page, but have what we call transitions, so you have maybe 3 images with 3 different sort of messages for training or commune. So they will change. Or you'll still have a transitions, but then for the other sections, for each section that you have specific images. So that means it kind of caters.
This shows you what happens in Google Translate.
Yeah. See,
children and ed.
Education. See, is not.
What is that? You know, it's not good. It makes you look unprofessional. You probably just have it in Swedish.
Yeah.
Instead of just let Google do it.
For us, yeah.
And, or just have an English version as well, because the Germans speak English, the French speak English, they even have a English song on Eurovision, so they're okay with English now. The Dutch speak English. If you're going to invest in another language, just have English, but also probably German. We've noticed that German and English seems to be the accepted languages. So it'd be worth having proper versions, actual Swedish version.
Or stay with Swedish. You know, if this is something that you can't do. Because the Google Translate, like I said, I don't need to have, I don't need to have this, because that means you've approved this. You know, that means that what you're giving me when I go to here and I go to the English version, I've got a great sign that I can understand, and at the moment I don't understand it, because it's falling apart.
Small, what's that?
And the other one, culture and FR, I don't know what that is, building, you know, so it really destroys your website. I mean, that is really a main sort of criticism of the site. And also, imagery, I mean, this one says looking for summer. For me, that means, you know, it gives me an impression of a holiday. And then when I click onto that, if you go to the next slide, see, what comes after it says, I'm not sure, is it job vacancy? Because it says free jobs. See, I don't know what free jobs means. Does this mean voluntary work or free service or job opportunities? Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm completely and utterly, and this goes right through your site, okay? So, because it doesn't mean anything to us. You know, is it a free job? I mean, what is it? Because that is, and another thing, when we talked about consistency before, you have these 2 images. You've got that for your entrepreneur club, and then when you go to the page itself, you've got that. Well, those 2 things have nothing in common or any consistency. I think what you need to look at is create a really nice, what do we call it, a brand for the entrepreneur thing?
Almost a system.
A system that sort of that is, well, as soon as I see that kind of image, I know that's the entrepreneur club. So it needs its own identity. So the entrepreneur club or business club needs to have its own identity, and then if I have that on the home page, when I click onto it, I recognize it instantly, and I know that's the entrepreneur club. Because otherwise, I mean, that's a complete. That looks like a coffee shop to me. Do you see something? It doesn't give me the feeling of busyness. Okay, all I can see is breakfast. Again, I do believe this is probably due to the Google Translate. We have inconsistencies when it comes to upper and lowercase. In some places you have uppercase, no lowercase. So that's something that obviously needs to be consistent. But I don't think that's an issue with Swedish, is it? I mean, I think it's the Google Translate. Again, we have logos chopped off. And the sections and subheadings are a little confusing, you know, they're not clear enough, you know, and that's something that is a little bit more complicated. We need to look at the layout and the menu there to simplify all those subheadings. Maybe something to think about is having an event calendar on the homepage. That makes it very clear for people to know when you're having different events throughout the month, the week, you know, whenever. they could click on there and then they have links to all these different events that you can see it immediately, you know. So that would be something to think about. Especially on a big municipality website, it's good to find information straight away, because if I'm interested in something, I can see, well, there's different events, I click on them, it takes me straight there and it gives me the information immediately, rather than having to go through the different sort of sections, you know, and the menu. So the calendar could be a really good feature for you. Yeah, I don't want to be too mean, but yeah, it's basically really, the Google has to go from your homepage. Please just take that off, you know, until you decide if you want to have a multilingual site, that comes off. Anyone will find it. You know, if we want a translation, we'll go on it, and then we know that is not good, you know. But, you know, but I still think if you're looking for tourism from, you know, sort of outside of Sweden, then you need to really invest in another language. We're not saying English because we come from England, but we think there's more people that would speak English, and that would be more value for money for you. I mean, we've travelled in Germany a lot, and we never found any problems with people speaking English, so that might give you the biggest sort of, you know, span of, you know, communities and, yeah, and target market, that's what we're doing. So that's the few. I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you want to ask me about the website. I cannot try not to say too much on this.